The fourth police officer of the 6 officers charged in the death of Freddie Gray was found not guilty on all charges last week. Lieutenant Brian Rice was the highest-ranking officer of the 6 officers charged and was acquitted in a bench trial ruling. Following this acquittal, just this past Wednesday, the charges against the remaining 2 officers who had not yet been brought to trial were dropped by the prosecution. Take a look.
However, after much thought and prayer, it has become clear to me that without being able to work with an independent investigatory agency from the very start, without having a say in the election of whether our cases proceed in front of a judge or a jury, without communal oversight of policing in this community, without real substantive reforms to the current criminal justice system, we could try this case 100 times and cases just like it, and we would still end up with the same result. Accordingly, I have decided not to proceed on the cases against Officer Garrett, Sergeant Alicia White, or to relitigate the case against William Porter.
Joining me now is nationally renowned forensic criminologist and the author of The Truth Behind the Black Lives Matter Movement and the War on Police, Dr. Ron Martinelli. Doctor, thanks for being here.
No problem. Good to be with you and your viewers today.
It's always good to see you. All right, 4 of the 6 officers, like I said in the intro, found not guilty on all charges in the death of Freddie Gray, including this most recent one, the highest-ranking officer, and the prior one who was the most seriously charged. But then the real news here is that the charges against the other 2 officers who had not yet been brought to trial, those charges were dropped. Why did they drop the charges?
Well, it's quite simple, Liz. There's no corpus or elements of the crime that could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt or even close to a reasonable doubt. And so it really didn't make any more sense. And it's been a complete debacle and an embarrassment for State Prosecutor Mosby to continue with this charade.
Right, and I wanted to ask you about that too. Marilyn Mosby, we heard her in the video at the beginning of the segment. She essentially insinuated, if she didn't say directly, that she considered these officers to still have committed the crimes, but she wasn't able. She didn't have the resources. She said that she wanted to be able to charge them. What's going to happen to her after this?
Well, first of all, she's completely wrong. She had infinite resources to investigate this case. She conducted a faulty 24-hour investigation of a very complicated death case. So she had everything that she needed to proceed. She decided when to proceed, not the judge. And by the way, it was an African-American judge that made the determination on the majority of the officers that they were innocent. I think she's done. And as a matter of fact, if I was Mosby, I would get myself a good civil attorney because you know they're going to sue her for malicious prosecution, and they deserve to do that.
Right, and it seems as though they ought to. Let me ask you about this. The city negotiated, this is of course on the civil side, that's the criminal side, this is the civil side. The city negotiated $6.4 million in settlement with Freddie Gray's family. Why did they do that if these officers were found not guilty on charges, if they didn't contribute to his death?
Well, sure. And you know, Liz, I'm involved in about 20% of all of these cases nationwide, and I work for all sides. I've worked for many nationally prominent law firms that deal with civil rights violations and wrongful death, as well as working for prosecutors and police agencies. The fact of the matter is that there's no corpus to continue. She had no forensic evidence whatsoever. The evidence that she tried to get from her forensic pathologist, Dr. Wick, was completely refuted by an even more prominent forensic pathologist, Dr. Vincent DeMaio, who I've worked with before. So there just was nothing there. Nobody inside the van killed Mr. Gray. He had no signs of any force-related injuries. He was agitated and chaotic. The proof of the matter is in his toxicology report that showed extremely high, almost toxic levels of cannabinoids and opiates in his system.
Right, and let me switch topics just a little bit on you. You're the expert here, not only on the war against police, on police itself, and then on the Black Lives Matter movement. There was a police officer, a San Diego police officer right here nearby to where we are that was shot and killed this morning during a routine traffic stop. This was obviously part of the war on police officers being targeted versus what the Black Lives Matter movement accuses, and that that accusation being that police officers target young black men. This comes just a week or two after President Obama's comment about police officers. If police officers and police departments acknowledge their failures, that will make the job of a cop being a lot safer. Dr. Martinelli, I don't understand how, from a president who says, based off of the data and evidence, there's a problem here, can make a comment like that when we see that the targets are actually police officers.
You know, that's just in the president's DNA, unfortunately, spewing the false narratives again. The truth of the matter is we've seen a 78% increase in officers murdered in the line of duty since this same time last year. If this continues, we will see an over 100% increase from 2013 murder levels of police officers. This is absolutely astounding. And a lot of this could be mitigated if we had leadership at the top that told people that they need to just calm down. You know, people are always talking about police officers, disengaging or calming down. It's really the public that needs to calm down here. Officers are trained to try to work with the public when they're out of control and emotionally engaged.
Right, and we hear liberal politicians all the way up to the President of the United States talking about data and evidence backing up the claims, the concerns of the Black Lives Matter movement that there's racial bias in police shootings. But we have actual data here from a Harvard University economics professor by the name of Roland Fryer. He did a study on 10 major police departments across the country in various cities. His study found that there is no racial bias in shooting. In fact, when the suspect does not attack first, the police are more likely to shoot the suspect if the suspect has white skin. Opposite of what our president is claiming.
No, that's exactly right. And if people, read my book, The Truth Behind the Black Lives Matter Movement and the War on Police, it's available on Amazon. All of the statistics are in that book, also in Dr. McDonald's book, and they absolutely support what the Harvard professor found. Twice as many whites are killed by police officers in violent confrontations than blacks. And by the way, here's a statistic you never hear. Officer shootings of black suspects are down 75%. Yet almost 9 times the number of police officers are killed, a 9-to-1 ratio of police officers are killed by black suspects as the other way around. So, people just have to they have to educate themselves, and they have to have a more studied analytical response to these things, including politicians, instead of these emotional outbursts that lead to our officers being assaulted and killed.
Right, because it's not just letting emotions run away in a sense that's not hurting anyone. It is hurting people. It's hurting the police officers who are being targeted because of this misinformation and this lack of real evidence and real data that the Black Lives Matter movement is lying about. Dr. Martinelli, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about this. Your insight is always spot on. Thanks for being here, sir. All right, guys, what do you think? Was the prosecution in the Freddie Gray trial politically motivated? Let us know on Twitter at Liz_Wheeler. Meantime, we'll be right back.